What's going on, guys? Just going over quickly the results to recap UFC Fight Night Columbus, which was Blaydes versus Daukaus in the main event. Pretty fun fight night card. I had to actually watch a couple of those this morning just because I was busy last night. But, it was a losing night. Slight loss, 2.5 units of profit lost personally on the night. A lot of the props failed us, which I never really load too heavy on the prop bets, but also my parlays were kind of busted. If you saw my best bets video on Thursday, I put out a 2-fight, a 4-fight, and a 6-fight parlay, and the 4 and the 6 were both busted by pretty wrestle-heavy game plans from the part of Sarah McMahon and Mark Diakese, surprisingly enough. So just to go over a couple of those things, the bets, as far as the picks went, not too bad on the night, like 8-4, I think, on predictions for the night. Nailing a couple of the good underdog spots like Matus Nicolau in particular and Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez actually ended up finishing that fight over Dana Batgirl. I thought he would win a decision as, usually his record indicates, and that's one of the props that we had plus 215 ticket on. Pretty good odds on that. But he managed to get it done inside the distance, so that's a case of where we got the pick right, the prediction right, but how it happened, totally not how I expected, but awesome fight nonetheless. So that prop was a loss. On the money line on my best bets video, I put out Luis Saldana, I believe there's a little squiggly over his last name there. So Luis Saldana managed to win that fight over Bruno Souza. Started off slow. Bruno Souza was a lot more of the aggressor than we thought he would be, or at least than I thought he would be in that fight, but Saldana's volume, just his variety of strikes, he managed to pull off that decision win there. So that money line hit at plus 100. So not quite an underdog price, but an even money price, slight underdog. So that was nice to get. But yeah, it was really just Sarah McMahon and Sarah McMahon beating Carol Hossa was one where, man, I just really did not think, and those two fights were pretty identical as far as game plan goes. Sarah McMahon and Mark Diakese both just smothering top pressure, not giving an inch of room to their opponent to get back to their feet. Sarah McMahon, 41 years old, I really don't regret betting against her, I think, even in hindsight, just because I was just wrong on that, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. I just figured she'd be too old to put up with the huge volume of Carol Hossa. But Carol Hossa, no way you're going to get any volume off if you're stuck in her back for 2 rounds. But pretty impressive in the 3rd round. Usually a lot of fighters are mentally broken down by round 3. They know they're already down by 2. A finish might not be the most likely, but Carol Hossa definitely was diving in on top of Sarah McMahon with like 2 minutes left, trying to get any sort of the volume that she could off in the 3rd round. I was very impressed with her tenacity and just her heart and will to win. Even though she knew that she was down 2, she still put up a hell of a fight in round 3. So even in a loss, pretty impressive. Then, Vyacheslav Borshev. Man, you can see the improvements. You can see the fact that he's there. This is a big step up in competition. And usually I'm the type of sports bettor where I fade the lesser experienced guys, like somebody like Diakese that's been around the block, whether it's wins or losses on his record. I usually do tend to favor more the UFC experience and just the veteran savvy of those guys. But Mark Diakese is such a hot and cold fighter that with the pressure and all of the things in the pro column for Vyacheslav Borshev, his technical striking, his power, his speed, his volume. I just assume that if chances are Mark Diakese might be in a slump, might be having a bad night, and not go for. I even mentioned in my prediction video, I'm not going to bet on Mark Diakese to fight a smart game plan and go for the wrestling, which is the path of least resistance. But that's exactly what he did for 3 whole rounds. No matter the boos from the crowd or how little activity he did on top, he controlled that time. He took the path of least resistance and had himself a good night there. Preserving his career and getting a W. So. More power to him. It was just the pick just didn't go our way. I don't really regret that pick too much either. I mean, I still think that, had it been a stand-up affair, which is what I would have most predicted from Mark Diakese, at least spend some of the fight standing before, maybe when he fails in the striking realm, maybe then he would take it down. But he just went relentlessly for takedowns without even giving the stand-up a chance, which very smart game plan. And if I were him, I would have done the same thing, but that's not what I predicted at all. So, just gotta sharpen up those picks a little bit, especially when we're loading up on parlaying those 4 and 6 leg parlays. the top parlay where I had the most confidence in was Manon Fiorot and Curtis Blaydes, and those two both came through in impressive fashion. Manon Fiorot looked amazing, just pretty much the exact same fight that I predicted it to play out as. Fiorot by decision, just getting the better of every single striking exchange damn near. Curtis Blaydes, I didn't play a prop on that fight because I just figured that could go 5 rounds or it could end inside the distance. I thought it would end by TKO in the later rounds, but Blaydes got it done pretty early on in the fight. So, yeah, that's why I didn't choose. It's hard enough to choose a side, much less choose how they win. And I didn't have a clear indication of how that fight would play out. I thought very well Curtis Blaydes could have followed like Sarah McMahon or Mark D. Casey, just smothered him for 5 rounds relentlessly, and made it kind of a boring fight. But he looked very impressive and got it done inside the distance early. So those two confident players coming through is really what saved this from being a worse night, right? We put most of the, when I put out a parlay or a top parlay, if I make a 2-leg, a 4-leg, a 6-leg, that 2-leg parlay has a lot of investment. If one of those fighters fails, it's probably a losing night for us, no matter what else happens on the side of the props and whatnot. So usually it's those two. This is a very, very chalky card, and by chalky we mean very, very large favorites, very, very wide lines. We're looking at, speaking of, we're talking about chalky lines. Khizriev, that first round of that fight was very, very, very close. I mean, in the striking exchange at least, he was able to get his opponent to the ground, but man, he looked like he was gassing out a little bit, and some of those striking exchanges in the pocket against Tuliulin were very, very tense for a guy who was, closing at like a minus 1,200 favorite as a debutante. But we managed to get that prediction as well, which was our third most confident fighter of the entire night. So, like I was saying, that top 2-leg parlay is really where we put the most of our investment. And had a couple of the props gone our way, it would have been at least a break-even night, if not slight profit. But I had 4 props, which means, and I usually follow like the money line for those props. So I'll pay the price in the money line. For example, like the prop that did come through out of the 4 was Neil Magny versus Max Griffin. Fight goes to decision at minus 200. So I always try to win 1 unit off of those props. So I put 2 units to win 1 unit. So I paid the minus 200, 2 units to win 1. Now the rest of them, like we had a couple minus 155 props on there too that didn't go our way. So those were 1.55 unit losses. So I'll pay that price to then potentially win 1 unit. Is usually how I play those. So they're not going to make or break the night, but they will add that a little icing on top of the profit that we get, or save us if some of the parlays go wrong. So that's kind of how I arrange it most of the time when I'm going to give you guys like a 2, 4, 6 progressive parlay scheme. Those props are there to kind of save us, either make the night a little bit sweeter or save us from a bad night. But yeah, with Sarah McMahon and Mark D. Casey being the bane of our existence last night, it was a slight losing night. But overall, I mean, the 8-week stretch of fights so far, I guess we should kind of go over what we did for the quarter, since this is the last week of the quarter of 2022. Quarter 1 went very, very well, and out of that 8-week stretch of fights, we were profitable on 6 out of 8 of those weeks. The only losing nights were, what was that? I think that was the night where I lost the Barbosa bet, and he kind of shattered things for me, which was the Covington Masvidal night. That was a slight loss, and so was last night. The UFC London card was kind of a break-even card for us. It was a slight profit win. And then there's another break-even night in there too. The very first fight of that 8-week stretch, the Strickland-Hermanson, that was a slight win as well. It wasn't like groundbreaking profit, but it was slightly a win. The bigger nights were the Makhachev Green and the Ankalaev Santos. Those were hugely profitable nights, and we're sitting very pretty right now in quarter 1 of 2022. So I'm ready for a week off. I might still go over like the PFL Challenger Series that happens next week, and I believe there's a Cage Warriors card as well. So if I find some nice lines on there, I'll do like a breakdown of those key fights where I find some value on some guys. I'll probably go over, like I said last week, a subscriber had asked about doing just a beginner to sports gambling, a glossary of the terms, and kind of my strategy for being profitable. I'll probably drop that next week as well in place of a UFC fight card. And looking ahead to UFC 273, I've already jumped on the obvious spots. I still have to dive into a lot of the tape study, but I've jumped on Volkanovski and Peter Yan. Peter Yan is already, when I got it, it was like minus 450, and Volk was about minus 500. So I just jumped on, sprinkled a little bit of money on those lines just because I know they're going to get crazy probably as the fight, since these lines have been out for a while, the prices will probably bet to maybe even bigger favorites. But I am interested to take a look. I love Chan Sung Jung, the Korean zombie, who's taking on Volkanovski. I love that guy as a fighter. I'm going to find every single way to try to bet on him as an underdog. I've been a fan of his ever since like the Leonard Garcia fight back in WEC. So a long time, but yeah, I still have to go over the tape, but I did sprinkle a little bit of money on those just to secure that I got into those lines where they are. So, you know, off the top of the dome, I would probably suggest that you hit those sooner than later. But either way, yeah, it's been a great first quarter. So moving on to the future, I will you know, just keep on trying to make better reads, better improvements. The props, I thought this week, you know, I was disappointed that I only got 1 out of 4 that I put out, but you know, that's just how it goes. There were some close fights there. Like Chris Gutierrez, like I said, we got the side, just didn't get the method. That's kind of why I don't load up heavy on the props. Like I said, it's hard enough to pick a side in this game, much less how it's going to happen. So those spots I saw value on, I don't really regret those props. It just didn't shake out that way. But we'll try to continue to get sharper with them. And yeah, I hope you guys had a good result for last night's card. I saw just looking in the Twitter sphere, I saw a lot of people did very well. So let me know in the comments how you did. Yeah, share your wins, share your losses, and yeah, stay tuned on the channel. I'll still be active even on the off week. All right, boys. Cheers.